Welcome to the Bonnie Forward Show. I am your host, Bonnie Forward, and it is my pleasure today to welcome as my guest, Carla Malden, the daughter of the Academy Award-winning actor Karl Malden, and an author of many books, including one that she co-authored with her famous dad entitled, When Do I Start? So welcome to the show, Carla Malden. And because we might as well start now. And let's see, here we go. Hi, Carla Malden.
I'm Bonnie Forward.
How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Well, let's start by talking about your famous Karl Malden dad.
Yes.
There he is. When do I start? Well, I'm going to start now. Thanks, Karl. What a career he had, my friend. Let me tell you. Oh, my God. Our dads were not too far apart in age. I think your dad was 3 years older than my dad because he was born in March of 1912 and my dad was born in December of 1915. And
sounds about right.
Yeah, and your dad started in New York City in theater, and my dad started in San Francisco in radio. And I know they both had to stop their respective entertainment industry careers because of WW2, but they both ended up finding their way to Los Angeles, and after the war to Brentwood, where they picked their careers back up and settled. And where you and I grew up at the same time.
Correct.
You went to Westlake School for Girls, and I went to the competitive Marlboro School for Girls.
I won't hold it against you.
But you won't hold it against you, and I won't hold it against you either. So let's go on in. I'm going to start talking about a little bit about your dad, because many people that are, many of my dedicated listeners, don't remember, but Karl Malden, your dad, won an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor as Mitch in Streetcar Named Desire in 1951, which was amazing.
Correct.
I mean,
Yes.
He worked with Brando. I mean, the cream of all of them.
Many times. He worked with Brando many times. Well, they originated Streetcar on stage together for 2 years.
With Brando?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
They shared a dressing room for 2 years.
Oh. Mm-hmm. We won't talk about the comparisons that probably went on there. Yeah, that's very interesting because that means that they were extraordinarily comfortable with each other.
Yes,
when
very
they
close.
Film.
Yes.
So that must have been, I'm assuming, pretty easy to direct.
Well, it was the same director.
Right.
Kazan did the stage production and the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it was basically the same cast except for the part of Blanche. Jessica Tandy originated that on Broadway. And because, believe it or not, Marlon Brando was not a big screen name, they felt they needed to bring in a big screen name at that time. So they brought in Vivian Leigh.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it was entirely the same cast. What
did your dad tell you about that experience?
Of translating from stage to screen,
and working theatrical. Well, they're both theatrical, but working on film as opposed to live.
I think it was not a huge adjustment. I mean, he knew he had so metabolized that part of Mitch that he could easily call on it again, even though there'd been a little stretch of time between doing the theater production and the film. And he just loved working with Brando. That was always a treat for him. He felt like he had to up his game. You had to bring your best for Brando because you never knew what he was going to do. So it kept you on your toes. So it was a pleasure. He loved to work, as implied by the title of his biography that I wrote with him. He just loved to work. And that's how we landed on that title, was whenever he was offered a part, basically the first question was, when do I start?
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. I love that story. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of that, I mean, his range as an actor in roles was phenomenal also. I mean, hello.
Yes, it's always interesting when I run into someone who said, oh, your father, I think of him as, and almost always people have different ways to fill in the blank of that sentence. You know, either the bad guy from One-Eyed Jacks, or often a priest because that was on the waterfront, or Omar Bradley and Patton. And every now and then there'll be a real oddball one. But, you know, people have different facets of him spoke to different people.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the thing is when I go through his, you know, like in Baby Doll and, you know, the lecherous Archie Lee and all that stuff.
My personal favorite right there.
Yeah. He is great in that. Oh my God, it makes your skin crawl. Your dad's resume reads like a who's who of famous films. I mean, it's just insane. And he just never stopped working. I mean, Fear Strikes Out in 57, Pollyanna in 1960, Birdman of Alcatraz in 1962, Gypsy in 1962, How the West Was Won in 1962. I mean, how is he juggling 3 films in 1 year?
Back to back. He, you know, if a good part came along, he took it. He always felt like when he finished a part, he was never going to work again. He had that actor syndrome that, you know, that's it. That was my last job. So when they kept coming and they were good parts, you just said, yes, yes, yes.
And these were phenomenal parts.
Right. Really, you know, I mean, some landmark movies.
Oh, I mean, how fast were they shooting these films? Birdman of Alcatraz couldn't have taken like 4 months.
I can't answer that for you, but it must have taken a while.
I mean, Gypsy, and then all 3 of them in one.
Well, keep in mind, of course, that's the release date. So they may have been in, you know, editorial for a certain amount of time, but yes, they were back to back.
I was going to say he barely had a chance to breathe.
Yeah.
But that's a good thing, as we know. That is a very good problem to have. Was it hard on your family to have your dad away a lot?
It was what we were accustomed to, you know. It was a different time, and my parents were different from a lot of movie business parents now, in that we didn't travel with him. We did once when a Europe shoot coincided with our summer vacation, but otherwise we stayed in school. My mother stayed home with us. That was just a decision that my parents mutually made. In fact, my mother had given up a career as an actress to be a mom. So it was hard. And that, of course, we missed him when he was gone. And it was really a treat if he was shooting something like, for example, Gypsy, that shot entirely in town. That was like having a daddy who went to work in the morning and came home at night, you know?
Yeah.
But otherwise, it was just what we were accustomed to. In fact, I was born in New York, and he was doing mostly stage at the time. And then when he started to work more in movies, that's when he ultimately decided we all needed to move out here, because he was just gone too long and too much.
And I'm so glad you did, because I would not know you if you hadn't. Well, this was where, you know, especially back then, this is where it was, you know, the action was.
Right.
As far as films and all that. And he was, just speaking of your parents, may I just say, your parents had a remarkable marriage.
They did.
I mean, hello.
They were married 70 years.
70
years. Celebrated their 70th anniversary, I think 6 months before my father died. And
oh my God.
It was amazing.
Do you know that they remain one of the longest married couples in Hollywood? Did you know that?
I would have to assume that.
Yep. Longest married couples in Hollywood history. You know, I think they're one of, I don't know, 3. Something like that. I mean, and you were so blessed to have your parents for so long.
I know.
I mean, your dad didn't die till he was 97 and your mother was 102.
Correct. You've done your homework. Absolutely.
Oh, I mean, there are so many of us that would have wished for that length of time to.
I know. I was very lucky in that respect.
You really were.
I was lucky to have them to start with, because they were amazing human beings and superb parents and just wonderful people. So I was lucky in the parent department all the way around, and the longevity was just the gravy.
And the love for each other was, I mean, they loved each other. They really and truly loved each other. It wasn't like they were tethered because of, you know, some
not at all. No, not at all.
Business agreement or something, you know.
Not at all.
It was by choice, you know, and considering how much your father worked. And so let's move to that, because in the 1970s, lest we forget, where I think most people remember your dad as that tough but honest screen persona that he created when he starred as Detective Mike Stone on the streets of San Francisco. That must have been a blast. I mean, he co-starred with Michael Douglas, so of course, that you guys must, I mean, they obviously shot a lot of that in Los Angeles also. So he
Well,
was
not really. I'll tell you, Bonnie, it's interesting. It ran for 5 years. The
Correct.
first year they went back and forth between
Mhm.
San Francisco and Los Angeles. They did
Really?
the interiors on the soundstage in Los Angeles and exteriors in San Francisco. But it moved too exhausting for everybody, the crew and the actors. So after the first year, they moved it entirely to San Francisco. They had a soundstage there. They did interiors and exteriors. So it was entirely shot on location. And that's why my dad always used to say it was really like San Francisco, the city of San Francisco was sort of the third main character in the series because it was so beautifully featured.
Well, it's true, and it was called The Streets of San Francisco.
Exactly.
A lot of exteriors. So that was
Right.
like, I think that was sort of why people loved it so much, because they could like.
It was I think if I'm correct, it was one of the first series to be shot entirely on location.
I love it.
Hawaii 5-0,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Da, da, da. Yeah, I mean, and it was everybody loved that show. Everybody loved the chemistry between Michael and your dad. Did your father know? Well, obviously he knew Michael's dad, but did he already know Michael pretty well as an actor?
Not that I know of. I don't think so. No, he didn't know Michael. He knew Kirk from a zillion years ago from summer stock days when he and my mom had been in summer stock in,
Right.
upstate New York and that. But he didn't know Michael, but they just adored each other. That was really a lovely relationship.
Oh, the chemistry was just perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the thing I think about your dad. Your dad could work with a rock. You know what I mean? It's true. I mean, everybody
not happily, but he could.
But everybody loved working with your father.
Yeah.
Everybody loved him. He was.
I have to say, when I was younger, I worked in the movie business in different capacities, production management and development. And unlike a lot of actors, he really was without ego.
Exactly.
The work came first. And I think that came across, and that's why people loved to work with him also.
Well, he was sort of like that face you never forget, but he was also a character actor that could fit in with everybody. I don't mean he was a character actor, but I mean, you know what I'm saying?
No, he was a character actor. Absolutely. He was not a leading man. He was a character actor.
Yeah. I mean, he got on with everybody, and it showed because he was easy to work with. That's what I'm saying, is that people could bounce off of him so comfortably because he always, hit his marks. He knew what he was doing. It was like he was ever present all the time for you, his fellow actor.
Well, if you're an actress, if you get the best out of your scene partner, you're going to deliver your best. So
Exactly.
he was certainly aware of that. But I'll tell you something you might find interesting. He was of Serbian descent, Yugoslavian, and grew up in a little Serbian enclave in Gary, Indiana, where everybody was a Serb. And he didn't speak English until he went to kindergarten, even though he was born in the United States. Mm-hmm. So he would be the first to tell you that all his life, he kind of felt like he was playing catch up with the English language. So the point of my story in relating to his career is that he had to come prepared. He didn't like to do a cold read. He would never read a cue card. He didn't feel 100% confident in his reading with English. So, I mean, he read English, obviously, but you know what I'm saying? He felt like he wanted to learn the part, learn where every comma was, and come letter perfect.
That's excellent. That's like a soap opera actor.
I don't know, but probably.
Yeah, they're the same. They're exactly the same way because, the writers, they have to be very careful with that punctuation because that, they even write in beat and all that kind of stuff in a soap opera script because you have to know.
Though I have to say, this is also interesting for you as an actress, that when I was a child and in through my teenage years living at home, I would sometimes cue him. He'd say, come on up to he had this little office sort of study room above the garage. And he would, he'd be learning a part and he would want me to cue him, read the line that would go into his line. And as much as he would want to have it letter perfect, oftentimes, and this I incorporated as a writer, he would say to me, scratch that line out. I can act that. Don't too talky. Scratch that line of dialogue. He didn't care about having more dialogue. Scratch that. I can act that emotion.
That is brilliant.
Yeah.
That's not only is that interesting, but it's also brilliant because it cuts out all the, I mean, don't tell the writers, but
Yeah.
it cuts out stuff that is
The excess.
unnecessary. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's why I said I tried to incorporate that when I became a writer, in that, say it once, say it clearly, go onward,
I mean, your dad didn't have an accent, so I don't know why he was so.
No, oh no, he had no accent. He just felt like English was not his first language.
I know, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
Yet outside of that enclave, everybody spoke English. So that's very interesting, Carl.
Yeah.
That is really interesting. Do you guys talk about that in the book?
Yes, quite a bit.
Oh, that's very interesting.
We do. I would say one of the spines of his book is very much about his heritage and his striving to make his father proud and all those things that everybody feels.
Did your grandparents live long enough to see him become successful?
Yes, they did. In fact, another quick funny story. My father, his birth name was Mladen Sekulovic, a mouthful, and certainly something that does not fit on a marquee. So his first name was Mladen, M-L-A. He flipped the L and the A to get Malden. And he dropped the name Sekulovic into movies whenever he could.
Wow.
Always in Streets of San Francisco, one of the lesser detectives, Sekulovic, get over here.
Oh, I love that.
And he did the same thing in Birdman of Alcatraz. He was introducing someone to all the prisoners, and he was going down the line of cells, Johns, Smith, whatever,
Johnson.
Harris,
Yeah.
Sekulovic. And my grandfather, his father, saw that and said, no Sekulovic was ever in prison. So that's, that was his reaction.
Grandpa, you gotta get a sense of humor.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful story, Carl. I just love this. I love it. Then he also became the pitchman for American Express. And I didn't forget about that too.
21 years.
That's amazing. That's just amazing.
I think one of, if not the longest running affiliations between an actor and a brand.
Yeah. I mean, it makes progressive look slow. And then in 1988, he was president of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, which is amazing. And wasn't he there for 5 years? Was it 5 years?
I believe it was three terms.
3 terms. And then so then when that ended, you guys decided to work on this masterpiece, right?
We did. He'd been sort of toying with the idea in his own mind for a number of years and working on it in fits and starts and not really making progress. And he came to me and said, would you help me? And it was one of the joys of my life. We spent 2 years. I would go over to his house 3-4 mornings a week with my little laptop and ask him questions. And then I'd come home and look at everything we had talked about and go back the next day and ask deeper questions about the same thing. And, 1 step back, 2 steps forward. It took about 2.5, 3 years. And it was a joy and a privilege.
You must have learned an awful lot too.
I did.
What was it like working with him?
It was great. We laughed and we cried and I think we got to know each other in a whole other way. And, he was sort of relating to me as a professional besides as a daughter. And it was fantastic.
So did you stop doing what were you doing at the time when he asked you to come aboard?
I was screenwriting with my husband, who is since deceased, and I had a little child, and that's what I was doing.
Okay. And so you could break away from that comfortably and go.
Yes. I mean, it took a little while. I mean, I worked with him in the mornings when my daughter was at school, and then I'd do my other work in the afternoons. But it took us, I think, about 2 to 3 years of working together, and then maybe another year for me to really write it.
What did you find most challenging?
Um, that's a tough question in that it was really such a joy and a pleasure. It was a unique experience that sort of spoiled me in a way, in that I knew his voice because it's written in the first person, from his point of view. It's
Oh,
his
excellent.
story. It's an autobiography. So I knew his voice so well that it just came out effortlessly. So it really, the challenge was just getting all the information in, and
Exactly.
deciding which stories to cut and which stories to keep. But in terms of the voice, that was fun.
Yeah, yeah, I'll bet. I'll bet. And also,
Because his way of expressing himself is very different from mine. So it was like writing a character that I knew really well.
oh, that's cool. That's a great way to look at it. What a
Yeah.
great way to describe it and to describe the experience, because I mean, your dad is so unique. And I mean, everybody knew his face. I mean, that's why I say, character actors are usually, to me, character actors are generally the guy that you don't really recognize. You see him, you go, oh, where did I see him before?
Yeah.
No, oh man, I know. I've seen that guy before. Where did I see that guy before? Your dad was not that person.
Well, he would say that was a shift in his life that television made, in that when he was on
Yeah.
stage and in movies, people would say, I know you, do you work in the bank on the corner, or did I go to high school with you? But once you're on a television series and they see you weekly, they know who you are. And that's a whole different relationship with going out in public then.
I was just going to say, because people think they know you.
Mhm.
And did you notice how that shifted, where people would come up to him?
I didn't notice that much when we were home in Los Angeles, but if we traveled together at all, I remember once being in New Orleans with him, and
This
it
kind of
was
thing.
it was a lot of,
Yeah.
he would say to me, just keep walking, just keep walking,
Like, and then
Yeah, yeah, or more aggressive than that. I don't mean aggressive in a bad way, but
hey,
more,
Carl.
yeah, a lot more of that. Yeah.
Hey, buddy.
Yeah. Mike, a lot of Mike Stone.
Hey, Mike. Yeah, exactly. Hey, Mike. That's always trippy when they call you by your character's name. That's always weird.
Yeah.
It's just so weird. But yeah, well, that show was, iconic.
Yeah.
So there you go. Now, I know that your dad invoked a little controversy when he was pushing for that special salute to Kazan at the 1999 Academy Awards. How did you feel about that? Did you guys talk about that?
We did. I, in all honesty, had some mixed feelings about it. I knew Kazan. I had actually worked for Kazan. So I knew him personally, and I'm a huge fan of his work. I mean, he was a genius director,
Absolutely.
stage and screen, no argument with that. I understood other people's qualms, but I very much understood my father's point of view too, which is that the Academy is an arts organization, and this man deserved to be honored for a lifetime of work, a body of work. So,
Explain to the audience what happened, what the
okay,
controversy.
well, Kazan, during the McCarthy era of the 50s, Kazan was purported to have named names to the House Un-American Activities Committee, which created the blacklist, of course, that destroyed many people's lives, actors, writers, across the board. So there were people who crossed the street to avoid him for the rest of their life. And many of my parents' friends numbered among those people who avoided Kazan. But my father was extremely apolitical. I mean, he voted like a Democrat, but he was not politically interested, really. He was more interested in the person's work and the person's humanity. And you can start to split hairs and have a nuanced discussion about the fact that Kazan said, and other people said he only named names that the committee already had. That to me is irrelevant. I mean, I know that makes a difference to some people. Whatever, you know.
No.
I know to my father, it was all about the work. It was all about the work and personal relationship that he had had with Kazan. I mean, Kazan directed him in Streetcar. Kazan directed him on the waterfront. I mean, really landmark roles for him.
But
And
even Brando refused to give him the Oscar.
I know it was a touchy situation.
You know, and your dad and Marlon were good friends. It's like,
Ultimately, it was voted in. I mean, the Academy Board had to vote for it. And
well,
I'm
De
told,
Niro gave it.
I obviously
De
wasn't
Niro
there,
gave
but
it.
I'm told my father gave a really impassioned speech that convinced a lot of people, and it went forward.
That's good. That's good. Well, I know De Niro ultimately was the one who gave him the statuette.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting part of history in our business. And I
I
think,
think that, like you and I, having not really lived through it, will never really understand what it was like.
yeah,
So I just have to go with that. You know, I can understand it intellectually. I think I can understand what it must have been like emotionally. But to really live through that and see your friends' lives destroyed or have your life destroyed, we probably can't really get it.
yeah, exactly. Well, let's move on. So now let's talk all about you. Let's switch the books around.
Okay.
Let's talk about you, Karl Malden. Tell us about how you began your career working in motion picture production, development. Well, you kind of talked about that already.
Yeah.
And your feature writing that has appeared in the LA Times, which is fabulous.
Yes.
And I love that it's highlighting the marvels and foibles of Southern California and Hollywood. I love it. I have to write mine too. And you sit on the board of the Geffen Playhouse.
I do.
That is outstanding. You are one
Privilege.
jissy lady.
I am.
Why did you never pursue an acting career like your parents?
I couldn't have been less interested. I don't, here's the irony. I'm happy to be sitting here with you, Bonnie, but part of the reason writing holds an appeal for me is that I don't have to like talk in front of people, you know. So it's getting easier in my old age.
Like,
But
way different from your father.
well, he was actually very shy as a person, as a lot of actors are, as you know.
As I
You
know.
know, that's why they like to hide behind a character. But no, I wrote screenplays with my first husband, who, as I mentioned, passed away. And then after that happened, I didn't have the impetus to go back to screenplay format writing.
I get it.
I had really enjoyed writing my dad's autobiography with him. So I wrote a memoir called After Image of the last year of my husband's life and the first year of my life without him. And that sort of transition to being a young widow. And I enjoyed that so much, even though it was an incredibly painful process. I enjoyed the writing of prose, and that's what I've stuck with ever since.
So your previous novels, this is your new one, right?
Correct. My two and only.
Your previous novels are hang on,
Search Heartache.
Search Heartache and Shine Until Tomorrow.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. So tell us about that.
Search Heartache is a little similar to the new one, My Two and Only, in that they both deal with women of a certain age kind of having a midlife crisis, though they're completely differently precipitated. The new one, My Two and Only, has an overarching similarity to my life in that it's about the story of a woman who starts out, point A is that she's a widow, point Z is that she gets remarried. And it's the story of her struggle with that decision, in that society sort of gives us two contradictory messages. We're told, you know, subterraneanly, if you're lucky in life, you get a one and only, you know, a soulmate, a one and only. But then we're also told, when something horrible and tragic happens, move on. So it's her kind of internal battle or struggle with trying to reconcile those two forces.
Oh, fascinating. I love it. Where can people buy it?
And anywhere books are sold, including Amazon.
Nice. Oh, I
Yes.
love the cover. Who did the cover?
I should know that person's name. The graphic artist for my wonderful publisher, which is Rare Bird Books, which is a California independent publisher, lovely to work with, and they have a great graphics team.
Are they in LA?
They are.
Oh, good. Okay.
They are.
Okay. I'll be contacting them. I love this. I love it. And the other two, like, show us the covers of the other two. Do you have the other two behind you?
I do. Excuse me.
We can sell, Karla Malden.
I'd be thrilled. Okay. Well, this one is that, am I holding that up for the right way? Search Heartache, which, as you can see by the computer keyboard, is about a woman who finds something on her husband's computer that sends her down a rabbit hole.
Oh, cool. Oh,
yeah.
cool.
And a little bit of obsession, and
Ooh.
how is cyber infidelity the same as real infidelity?
Ooh. I love it.
I hope so. And then this one, Shine Until Tomorrow. Actually, Bonnie, I wrote as a YA book, a young adult book, but I was really thrilled and gratified that it had a major crossover into the adult marketplace as well.
Very hippie cover.
It is a hippie cover because it's about a teenager who travels back in time to the 60s summer of love.
I love this.
Yeah, so that's this one. And then here's my memoir, After Image, that I mentioned about losing my husband. But this is the book of the day. Is my two
new one. That's the new one. I love it. I love it. Love it. Love it. And just all the covers are so different. Did the hippie one? Who did the cover for that guy?
Again, the previous two. I knew the name at one point. The previous two were also with Rare Bird. So I've had 3 with Rare Bird books, and
they hire different illustrators every time.
They different graphics people. Yes,
that's very interesting. That's very interesting. I love the hippie one. That's really great. I love that concept of going back to 1969.
Well, it's very much. I'll give you the one-liner, which is it's about a girl who's obsessed with her future. She wants to get to Yale. She's very driven. Who has to go back to the past to learn to live in the moment of the present.
Oh, that's brilliant, Carla.
It's fun. It's a fun book.
I love it. I love it. I love it. All right, show all the covers again. Dad, the one with Dad, the one with you.
After Image, which is my memoir. Thank you, so sweet. Shine Until Tomorrow.
Okay.
Search Heartache.
I love it.
And then, well, here's my dad's. When Do I Start?
Love it.
And then the Book of the Moment. My two in one.
I love it.
Thank you for letting me do that.
Oh, of course. I want everybody to go out and buy these books because they're going to be fantastic reads. I'm telling you.
And I should add very briefly that these two, Search Heartache and Shine Until Tomorrow, are also now available newly in paperback.
Oh, great. Fantastic. More sales, more sales.
Amazon. Amazon has everything.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, that brings us to the end of our show. Thank you so very much for being my guest today, Carla.
Thank you so much.
You are such a gem, and I am so grateful to know you, my friend.
My pleasure to be here with you, Bonnie.
I love you heaps and heaps and heaps.
Thank you so much for having me.
You are so very welcome, my lovely, lovely friend. Well, I hope you've enjoyed my interview today. And as always, love and light and peace out.